And that is the big breakout that we were looking for, ladies and gents. Bitcoin spent literally like a couple of days straight consolidating under this resistance at 107k. Now, it's not ideal that we did this on a weekend. Weekend trading price action is usually going to be a little bit more kind of turbulent, but as we've been saying, we do typically actually find that weekend price action just aligns itself with traditional finance. So I actually still think this is pretty good. We're going to know the answer to this in a few hours, and we might be live when it happens. So make sure that you're here, subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss this. We're going to go live if it makes sense to at the time. And really what happened here is that this is a macro zone of support, of resistance that Bitcoin has really held for quite some time now. I mean, ever since we flipped above it, really, you know, kind of at the end of June this year, Bitcoin hasn't fallen below it until this big dump that happened. And we understand what the second dump was, right? The first big dump here happened because it was just a major liquidation event. But after that, there was such an absence of leverage that everybody started going fucking max long again. And then there was another leverage wipe. And that's what kind of resulted in what now looks to be a deviation. And that's kind of the subject of this video, because if Bitcoin is now forming a kind of, you know, confirmed deviation down and then recovering back into this range, I have to say that's a really bad sign for bears. You know, that's really what you don't want to see as a bear in this market. And like I said, I think this is all just going to hinge on whether or not traditional finance confirms it, because, you know, traditional finance has already been showing a little bit more strength than Bitcoin for quite some time now. And if we're going to see that continue here in this market, then very likely what this is going to result in is Bitcoin also continuing to show that strength and recovering above some of its resistance levels. Now, it really only has this resistance level here, which we've broken, and this resistance here that I'm interested in. So 107 we just broke, 117k up above that we're headed to. And the fact that we've bounced off this level does confirm that we're kind of still range bound. And essentially what that means, despite how much everybody's going to be upset about this, is that where we are now is no different essentially to where we were 100 days ago, other than the fact that we are 100 days forward inside of a, you know, quite fucking bullish consolidation pattern. And I think it's funny, right? Because, you know, if I bring this attitude of like we're in a bullish continuation pattern, I say this to certain people, they'll be like, what do you mean bullish? No, we're not bullish. This. And they'll just come up with a bunch of fucking reasons for why the market's actually dead, or, you know, some other nonsense like that. But the reality is, I mean, if we look at this on, for example, the weekly time frame, this is a pretty controlled uptrend here. And this uptrend is punctuated by either kind of sideways consolidation ranges like this one here, a very small sideways consolidation range, or in this case, you know, your more typical kind of, you know, trend up, fight the trend, continue on. So it had that kind of thing going on here, just like this right here. You know, so we had that, and then we had this like really weird one, and now we're clearly just going sideways again. You know, this one looks very similar to this one. Let me draw a better arrow. Looks very similar to this one, and it looks very similar to this one. So, you know, if Bitcoin does basically just reclaim the range that it's in right now, then I think it's actually quite likely that Bitcoin does just potentially go sideways for the next little bit. On the weekly here, which only has 4.5 hours left on the candle, we do now have a kind of confirmed bounce here. And if we're able to close this weekly candle anywhere above 107k, then we have not broken market structure. But what we have done is we've flushed out a lot of the market, and we've given altcoin traders yet another chance at buying coins perhaps cheaper than they should have been able to buy them, which I think is absolutely fantastic as well. So that's a really strong development, ladies and gents. That's a really strong development. That's a big deal. The fact that Bitcoin did manage to get above this 107k level, the fact that we're sitting at 109 now. We do have some interim resistance levels up ahead, and we'll kind of color those in a little bit later on in this video. If you're excited for that, do me a favor and smash up those likes. Definitely would love to see that. And by the way, I do want to make a quick announcement. I'm not making a big deal out of this just yet because we are still adding things to it. But there is an offer that we've just launched. You're going to find it linked in the description somewhere near the very, very top right here. And it's going to be into our kind of VIP group or whatever. I don't really know what I'm going to call it yet. But this is essentially going to be the best offer we've ever put together. A lot of it is still yet to come, and we're keeping it very intimate just to launch here. But Essentially, you're going to be getting access to a community that will help you garner the mindset that you need as a trader. I've done this with many people with massive amounts of success. I now want to do this at a scale I've never done it before. And I'm pretty confident I can do it with everything that I've learned over the years doing this work. And, of course, trading myself as well. So I'm really excited. It's something that I don't really, talk about often. But we have been working on this in the background for a very, very long time. And if it's ready, it might not be ready by the time this video is up. But if it is ready, you're going to see it linked right here. So check that out if you are interested. And I'll give you more on that a little bit later on. Now, as for where Bitcoin is, though, the fact that we are recovering above this level does mean that we're going to have some interim resistance levels. Let's kind of color that in. Take a look at what that might look like here. Just by taking that fixed range volume profile tool, bringing it up to the day that we lost this range. We have the value area low coming in here at about 111. So that's going to be one of our kind of earlier levels to watch here with this market. Just put a horizontal line down there. There's also another spike that I see over here at about 113. That makes sense as well. And then another spike at 115.5. These are going to be all of our kind of, like I said, interim support level, resistance levels, I should say. The levels that, I'm not particularly concerned about, but if you are day trading or you just really, really want to know what levels to watch out for, then these are a couple of the levels that do make sense to me. Realistically, you could bring this down a little bit, just by $1,000 or whatever. I don't think it really matters, and I don't really want to focus on any of these resistance levels because I don't think that they're important enough. I think 107 was important. I think 117 is important. But besides those two levels, I'm not really interested in what happens in between. I think that if Bitcoin is able to hold its structure above here, I think if we're able to get a daily close here, which we're going to get in a few hours, if we're able to get a weekly close here, which we're going to get in a few hours, if we're able to potentially backtest this level and find support, all 3, 4 of these things, whatever, however number of things I listed, whatever number of things I listed, these are going to really, really bolster the environment for this market to continue to pump up. So that's what I want to watch out for. If things start taking a negative turn and Bitcoin just bounces off 107, that's going to be the best sign that you can possibly see that Bitcoin is probably headed significantly higher toward perhaps 114, 115, so on and so forth. And I think that's really, really important because if Bitcoin is able to start heading on up there, it's really reversing a lot of what happened. Again, though, from a place of being cleansed. Bitcoin hasn't had a deviation to the downside in a long time. We've had a number of deviations to the upside. Our resistance level, as far as I'm concerned, still sits at 119. So we've had a number of resistance hits to the upside. But to the downside, the last time we got a real kind of deviation was probably like around here. Somewhere a little bit like, this candle here, maybe this wick. We've had big deviations before. We've had deviations that really were quite crazy. Like this one was pretty crazy. This whole thing here, like just everything below this range, these deviations were pretty crazy too, below 81. Each of these, drops here, they lasted a very short amount of time. I mean, this one was like a day. This one was maybe a couple of days max. Not even probably. And this one was also probably just a couple of days, right? Let's go ahead and measure this one. This is like 4 or 5 days, whatever. Bitcoin has had a lot of deviations to the downside, even in this range, in like the 70K plus range, even around the hundreds. But we haven't seen a negative deviation in this market structure for 100 days. So if this does turn out to be a deviation, and meaning, Bitcoin does continue to travel up from here, then really, I think, we have nothing to be surprised by. Bitcoin is supposed to deviate. It's not nice. I don't like it. I wouldn't say it's supposed to deviate, but in its current posture, the way it behaves these days in this market, this is how it works. It's just a fact. This is how it works. And because of that, we can be cognizant of, these deviations and then basically trade off them or analyze based off them. And we can carry a certain level of confidence. Now, you might not believe in deviations the way that I do, and that's totally fine. You wouldn't be able to make decisions based off it then. But, me personally, I've been spotting these for a long time. I welcome them. I expect them. And you guys have heard me expecting them on this channel. If you're subscribed, you're going to know that we're not surprised by this deviation at all. At all. I was calling for this deviation while the drop was happening. Because when you get a deviation, you're really giving the bears a chance to drive the market much lower. And if they're not able to seize that chance and the market recovers higher, that is the bulls voting with their money that they will be defending those levels. And they will be bringing us back above resistance levels. So it's a really, really good sign here. If the market is able to continue charging higher, 117 becomes the level to break. And if we break that level, we re-enter this tiny range here. But it's probably GG at that point. If we break this level, I again think we're setting all-time highs. We did that last time. I thought the all-time high was going to be a lot more substantial. But like I said, liquidity grab and S&P 500. If the S&P 500 starts sorting itself out now, and we start seeing some uptrends continuing on the S&P 500, I don't think Bitcoin's going to have much trouble to regain all this ground. You know, Bitcoin can do it very quickly. You guys are forgetting, if you're bearish, how quickly Bitcoin did it just recently. I mean, from low to high, it took 8 days for Bitcoin to get from 109K to 126. Okay, that's not bad. If we're looking at a week for Bitcoin to erase all of this stuff, that is a very reasonable time frame as far as I'm concerned. Now, I don't know how this is going to work. It depends heavily on politics, macroeconomics. It depends on Trump to a massive extent. So these are the things that we need to be watching for, that we're going to be looking out for. But as far as what I can see right here, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I'm going to be watching and monitoring in this market. So I like what I see. I think altcoins are in a great place. Ethereum against Bitcoin, holding steady. Again, it's like nothing happened to these coins. Sol BTC, consolidating in a little bit of a downtrend. That could be concerning, but really these tides are going to shift if Bitcoin shifts, so we understand how that works. A couple of the big coins that you guys know that I like to watch, Cardano, XRP, Doge, BTC, everything's just kind of holding on, keeping its market structure. Meanwhile, we're just waiting for the S&P 500. Gold right here hasn't started yet. Will be starting in a few hours. So we'll take a look at what the gold commodity market does as well. Gold has been going crazy, but if it does continue to drop here, that could definitely continue to pave the way for the S&P 500. Not that we need it to drop, because both have been rising at the same time for a very long time at this stage. So I don't really know what could go wrong here other than politics, and that is a level of unpredictability thanks to Trump that I'm okay with. It makes the markets fun. It keeps the markets alive. It keeps traders predictable, okay? When everybody's constantly getting pissed off because there's a bad orange man sitting in the Oval Office, traders become predictable. And predictable traders means easy money for people like you and I. So, ladies and gents, super, super exciting stuff. Like I said, if that link to the VIP package or whatever we're calling it is up here in the description, get inside now if you think you might be curious. If not, that's totally cool. You'll get a lot more information on that later on as time goes. But this is starting off at launch as a very intimate group. It's all about curating the right energy, and we're going to open the group up to more people as we're able to curate that energy. If we don't have problems, we can keep expanding it. If we start hitting roadblocks and it feels like the value of the group isn't there as much as it should be because of more members, we're going to start limiting that. This is something that I've done in the past, and I plan on doing it way better this time. We've got some crazy offers. I don't want to talk too much about it. Those of you that are very loyal viewers, you probably know what I'm talking about because I have hinted at it on certain live streams over the months, over even the last year. But we haven't spoken about it too much, and we're ready to start bringing something to you guys. So if it's there and you're interested, check it out. If not, totally cool. Thank you all very much for watching. And if we do need to go live later on, we will be live. So make sure you are subscribed for that as well. Meanwhile, get yourself inside of... What is this? My bad. I am, I don't know. I think I was on the wrong browser there. Meanwhile, get inside of our free 4Flies Gold Telegram channel, and you can get more analysis around the clock, posted for free. All right, ladies and gents, thank you all very much. And we'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.